So you're at VentureBeat 2 years, and then I want to get to TechCrunch, but you then move on to Inside Network, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
I found myself covering Facebook a lot. I mean, this is 2008, 2009, and it was like when they the first article I wrote about them, I think they had 10 million users, and then obviously they've grown a lot since then. So I was like, this is really interesting. It was covering their international expansion, finally getting out of the U.S., all of the things they've done to get past I think they had already launched to high schools and workplaces, but they were doing a bunch of other expansion efforts. They launched a platform shortly after I joined VentureBeat. So it was I was watching that whole thing. I'm I don't know what this is all worth, but clearly it's worth something, because tons of people are spending their time on this.
Yeah.
And I know it mattered when I was in college, so I can sort of trace the relevancy of all of it. So Inside Network, I was watching this guy Justin Smith. I didn't know him in college at all, but he had started Inside Facebook in 2006 actually, and I was watching what he was doing, and he was doing these really smart things that other bloggers frankly were not doing. He was selling content. He would write these marketing guides that were collections of, they started out as collections of posts about Facebook marketing and sell them to marketers, and he called them the Facebook Marketing Bible. And over time, he turned them into these fuller-fledged products. And he started App Data, which was just using the Facebook API. And over time, he had built that up. And I started using his materials for my stories, and I started finding that he was beating me to stories because he knew the industry better. Because he was a developer,
and he was seeing data too, right? I mean, he had all this data to back up who was going to grow and who wasn't.
So I was watching him, and I'm like, this is a super smart way to approach the media business.
Yeah. And
I think we talked at the first time in beginning of 2009. And I was I'm at that point, TechCrunch Arrington approached MG and I about joining, and I was I'm not ready to I don't really want to be a blogger at this point. I want to still do something involved with startups, and I now realize I need to be more media oriented than I had been in my last one. So Justin and I ended up working things out where I joined, as the junior co-founder in I think it was August of 2009.
Yep.
So at that point, he'd had a bunch of part-time people writing, and I basically took over running Inside Facebook, Inside Social Games. We would launch Inside Mobile Apps the next year, and it was awesome. That was a real startup experience. Phil and Justin are both world-class product engineers.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of writers don't get the experience, not just of being in a startup, but working how intense it is if you're trying to push something, and all the work that's involved, and all the complexity that most writers don't understand, and just seeing people who are that good at what they do, because that's what's driving Silicon Valley, right? That's what's driving Twitter and Facebook and all these big web companies. Is there's a ton of people who work there who are brilliant, and it's thousands of their man hours that they put together, and they're not the ones in the headlines or whatever, but they're the ones who make it happen.
Sure.
And the CTOs who are in the background and all of that. And I think that was what I really got out of both of those experiences, was working with these A quality
engineers
products,
and developers, and
and playing a part in helping them ship.
It's cool. So 2009 to 2000, you guys eventually sell Inside Network, which was the kind of the parent company of all these other properties.
Inside Network had we had launched Inside Mobile Apps at that point. That was doing really well. We had some full-time writers come on. I was managing a team of 3 full-time writers and a few more part-time writers. And honestly, Justin was looking at the market and sort of, what we were doing, and we could have either, raised probably a venture round and tried to build out a big media company, or we could have sold.
Yeah.
And the offer was a really, really good offer. So, it's one of those decisions every startup makes. We had never raised money, so
not every startup gets to make that decision.
There are no investors complaining about how we didn't go big. Yeah. Right, my startup did.
Most of mine don't get to that point.
Well, Right with certainly did not.
They end with a letter to the state of California. That's how most of mine. That's the decision.
Don't repossess my bicycle.